Hey everybody, welcome back to Nikki T Live. I'm your host Nick Taylor, and today I'm hanging out with Peter Mbanugo. Uh, Peter, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm doing good. I got a bit of a stick neck. I can't say that properly. I think you know how when you sometimes just sleep a little weird. I just ended up sleeping weird somehow, but aside from that, I'm doing well. But what? Yeah, I don't know. I've got a few. I got an injury, so I'm sorting out my body basically, basically a snowboard issue. Uh, but yeah, um, yeah, I got all flustered there for a second for some reason. Um,
That's fine.
so Peter, for people who might not know who you are, do you mind just saying a bit about yourself? Maybe if how you got into tech, if you want to. Feel free to say as much as you'd like to, and where you're working at these days or what you're working on, and then we'll kind of dive into things.
Hi, I'm Peter Mbanugo from Nigeria, but now I live in Germany, Munich precisely. Um, I, I think I don't have the regular path into tech like most people, but I started programming or working officially, I think around 2010.
Okay.
Started with .NET and then later moved to JavaScript. But before that, I did we called it I think it was called desktop programming or something like that
Yeah, yeah.
back in the day. But basically, what they taught us in school then was like a 3 months or 6 months program where you learned like Microsoft Word, PowerPoint,
Okay.
designing stuff. So that was my first intro to computers. I was a bit fascinated, so I was curious to learn, and it wasn't that common. And then after that, I went back to school, and then preparing for uni, I just decided to focus on computer. I didn't do uni
Okay.
at the end of the day, but I decided to do a diploma in software engineering, and since
Okay.
it was a 2 years diploma, and after that I started working, and yeah, so far the journey has taken me here from .NET to doing offline first app with
Okay.
JavaScript, and then moving to Germany and building mostly JavaScript applications with Next.js,
Okay.
um, Node, um, also doing more of DevOps sometimes at work, DevOps, CI/CD. But now I work on my own, like a freelancing, since a
Okay.
few months ago. So I'm trying to set up properly my own freelancing or consulting business here in Germany. Because I'm not a permanent resident, so I have to go through all the formalities. But
Okay.
yeah, but aside from that, at the moment I'm doing building two products, FlyCD and Cron Atlas. So
Okay.
FlyCD is like a CI/CD deployment platform, but targeted at people that deploy apps to Fly.io.
Okay.
And I did that because we deployed some of my side projects on Fly.io, and I needed something like Vessel kind of
Okay.
interface to manage my apps and deploy
Okay.
without having to always do the same um, GitHub action script and all. So that was how it started as a side project. And now there are a few users, but I need to put more time in it and make it more into a more product. And
Okay.
also working on Cron Atlas, which is like a way to build, to do serverless cron jobs. So something I needed to do some cron jobs for Fly CD as well. So I started
Okay.
tinkering on Cron Atlas. So it's like one product to solve another problem on another product, and those are what I work on majorly now. Although in the last 6 weeks or thereabout, I haven't been doing a lot of coding because I have a newborn. So all the time trying to
Okay, yeah.
settle into a new life and all. But yeah, this is my first live stream or activity after like 6 weeks of less coding.
Oh yeah, no worries at all. And I'll just interrupt a bit. April Wenzel is in the chat. She says hello.
Uh-huh.
You had a few chats a while ago. It's been a long time, she said, but she wanted to say hello. And I don't know the other two people, but Lean Dev says amazing man. Didn't even know you didn't do uni, Peter. I always thought you did. LOL. And and yeah, and Lean saying they're enjoying the session, and uh, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but Oino or Oino Hudson Obai says hi, Peter and Nick. So um,
I
so
Yeah, Oino lives with me here in Germany. We actually
oh,
met
okay,
over the weekend. Yeah, and April, I know April. Hello again. It's been a long time. She was one of my mentors then when I was also transitioning to JavaScript
okay,
and meeting people online, asking for mentorship. Yeah, she was really helpful for me. So,
yeah,
hello, April.
yeah. I
I think
I
you did a
actually
live stream with her.
yeah, it was a couple weeks ago. Not last Monday, the Monday before. Sorry, not last Monday, but the Friday. Yeah, 2 Fridays ago. Because but yeah, it was a really good talking to her. I've never met April yet, but I really enjoyed the conversation we had. So yeah, it was really great, and she seems pretty awesome, and I think it's
Yeah,
pretty valuable the kind of work she's doing because you know obviously a lot of our jobs is like you've got to build a product, which means code, but like to get that code out there you need to be able to work in a team, and you know
yeah.
yeah, it was a really great conversation. I dropped links to flycd.dev and cronatlas.com. I'll help you shamelessly plug so you don't have to. um, but it's
Thanks.
yeah, it's pretty interesting that you were doing desktop before and like Microsoft stuff, because I've been doing web stuff for a long time, but I was in the .NET ecosystem before. Like nowadays, I'm mainly JavaScript and TypeScript, but I did a lot of .NET, more like ASP.NET and ASP.NET MVC. I did a bit
Web
of
forms.
Windows Forms, and I actually did Visual Basic 6 because I'm a little older, so that was a long time ago, but that was desktop applications. So yeah, I've seen a bunch of people come from those kinds of backgrounds, and they're kind of more web dev these days. I don't know what the reason is, or maybe it's just a bubble I'm in, but that's pretty
Yeah, I
cool.
think web development is, like I think the it's you have more web apps for many products compared to desktop app. Or maybe I'm
Yeah.
just biased because I transitioned. Uh, I didn't do a lot of Windows Form, but then we did web forms with ASP.NET web forms. It
Okay.
was
Yeah.
like very easy with the drag and drop days. I hated learning
Yeah.
JavaScript then. So we just dropped like a JavaScript controller and then it does all the magic for you
Yeah.
until it breaks and you don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, no, the Visual Studio is well, it still is a great IDE, but like even Visual Basic 6, like people always talk about like we need the Visual Basic 6 experience, and you could do this in ASP.NET and Windows Forms too, but like you'd have like the canvas of whatever the page is supposed to be, and then you would double click or drag stuff in. So like if you dragged a button in, you could double click the button, and then it would create the click handler and everything. And
Yeah.
it was pretty nice DX, I think. So but yeah, I really do enjoy working on the web though, just because it becomes available to more people. I think, like,
Yeah.
and especially with stuff like even building for web, you can still ship stuff in Electron apps or like Tori, which is a newer contender for Electron. But yeah, I don't think web development's going anywhere, so it's definitely not a bad thing to be in, I think. So but that's cool.
Yeah, and with progressive web apps, you have you can also do something that works quite well to a good extent on mobile.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, I guess let's talk a bit about. We were talking about this briefly before the stream, but so the topic of the session is building reliable systems using temporal. Is it or it's temporal, right? Not temporal. Temporal. That's how you pronounce it, I believe. I
I
think.
say temporal, so I don't know.
Okay. I think I remember because when Sean Wang used to work there, I'm pretty sure he said temporal. So, um, but I guess,
I guess it's the accent. If you say temporal or temporal,
yeah. Either way, that's what we're talking about. Um, so I guess like for people who like have never heard of temporal, could you maybe in your own words kind of describe what temporal is? Because I know when we spoke briefly, like Cron Atlas is using temporal under the hood, which we can get into later. But yeah, I guess for folks new to temporal, uh, what is it, or why would you want to use it? I guess.
yeah. So temporal is the these days they describe themselves as a durable execution system or platform.
Okay.
So temporal, there's temporal, the company, the building the cloud SaaS, and also the technology itself, which they refer to as temporal, and they try to give you like a workflow orchestration system or more like what they call now durable execution, which is just a way for you to be able to build systems that are they could be monolithic or also distributed, but
Okay.
you giving you some set of primitives that allows you to build a system that can be responsive or reliable despite system crashes.
Okay.
So if you've built maybe monolithic desktop apps or event-driven systems, you
Hmm.
you can expect failures from any part of your system, maybe sudden crash of a server, and probably along the line it needs to process an event, and maybe you lose that state, and then you need to
Okay.
think of how you want to continue running your code. So temporal gives you it offers different feature set to be able to build highly reliable system from being able to retry failed code so that
Okay.
despite system crash, whenever you start your system again, it knows how to start from the last place the system crashed and continue
Okay.
processing your code. Um, it allows you to build distributed system where you don't have to think so much about queues, how they work, maybe putting how to retry for failures, how to manage
Okay.
states. It gives you that programming paradigm to be able to handle those cases,
Okay.
and we can get more into details about different way it does that, but on a high level, it tries to show you um, it looks at everything as a workflow. So not typical workflow if you've heard of like some workflow system from the past or business process manager, but workflow in terms of
Hmm.
let's say you have a user sign up or you want to have a subscription system where user signs up and you want to after 10 days, you want to send them a reminder or you give them a period to cancel their subscription, or
Okay.
after that you can charge their credit card. So all these are processes where you have different steps of action that rely on each other, and if you have an event driven system you have to wait for different events and be
Hmm.
able to process, and in most of those systems there's no order to which these events come, but with temporal you can build um, like a flow,
Okay.
steps of code that you can easily reason about. And then the system can also handle cases where each function maybe fails for some reason and it can retry it
Okay.
for as long as you define.
Okay. So I guess like like some examples I'm trying to think of is like, say I signed up for a newsletter, and the subscribe flow, like it got my email address, but it didn't finish subscribing me. If that was in something like Temporal, it'd go like, oh, okay, like the system failed for whatever reason, but we have Nick's email, so we know the first step is he submitted it, but we have to finish the subscription. Is that kind of like something it would do, or
Yeah, so if maybe you subscribe and then next thing it needs to do is to, or maybe you charge the credit card and then next thing it needs to do is to create your profile. So
okay,
if you have that function that needs to create profile failing, it would keep retrying that code. And maybe it's
okay,
something with the function. You can fix the error, push the new changes, and then next time when it runs, it will continue from that step and use the new code you wrote
okay.
and continue from there.
Okay, gotcha. Cool, cool, cool. Also, I forgot to mention to you before the stream, if you see me looking to the left, it's not because I'm ignoring or not paying attention. It's just I'm just checking the chat. I'm not watching YouTube or something. It's it's just I'm not watching cat
Yeah.
videos or something. It's just seeing what's going on. Yeah, April in the chat was saying she was curious, so she had to check out what it was. So I think that was a great explainer. So so that is what temporal is and does. And I guess to be able to do that, there's this concept of durable object, which I kind of know what it is high level because I've heard it in other contexts. Like I mentioned to you, I'd spoken with Sunil Pai a few years ago when I worked at Dev2, and he was on the live stream and he was talking about durable objects in the context of Cloudflare. But um, I don't know if you want to dig into, like, I guess in your words, what a durable object is. Because I imagine this is something you probably work with most of the time when you're working with Cron Atlas. Or
I think they are a bit different. I
okay,
haven't used durable object. I skimmed through it, but I now I've forgotten what it actually does. But I think they are a bit different. Maybe you
okay.
tell me what durable object is, and I can see if they are the same. But on a
Yeah,
high
well,
level, I think
yeah, well, I think from what I remember, I think they're called durable objects, not to be sarcastic, but because they're durable. So like, they're 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 able to persist like regardless of certain conditions, and are like they're long lasting. And you know what? We can even I can switch us to coding view for a second, and we can look it up. Give me one sec here. And in fact, okay, let me switch to my screen. You should be able to see my screen in a second here. And all right, so there we go. So let me zoom this in here. Um, yeah, so this the thing I like about live streaming is like we can dig in and try and figure out what some things are too. I feel like I'm curious if there's anything on the temporal site there must be about durable objects. Let's see here.
they don't have a concept of durable objects.
Oh, okay. Durable execute. Oh, it's durable execution. Sorry.
Execution.
Okay. Sorry, I was mixing up things. Apologies. Okay. So
Yeah. I
okay. So
mean,
it's the con. Yeah.
I think on a conceptual level, the similarity is for durable object on Cloudflare. I think it's a way where you can persist states. So you have the
Yeah.
serverless runtime where they are stateless. So with durable objects, you can persist states and share state across multiple clients.
Yeah.
And I think they use that for different use cases, maybe like WebSocket, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
And
That's my mistake. I got confused. So yeah, it's the durable concept, not the actual objects, but yeah, like you're saying, so they're saying like, yeah, it's essentially basically it's always available. And I guess so didn't mean to throw a kink in there. I just got confused with some terminology.
yeah,
That's
no
that's
problem.
on me. Okay, so so getting back to, if we talk about durable execution, then So it's really that they're able to just reliably continue these flows that exist. Like they're like workflows that you build, I guess.
Yeah, maybe I can share a slide and we can look through like visually an
Yeah, sure.
example to help. Maybe that will help cement the.
Yeah, no, perfect. I'll just switch us over to the slides. I think you need to just share. I think you might need to share your screen again, or maybe I need to bring it
Oh
back
yeah,
in. Let me.
I need to share my screen.
Uh, it's all good. I've got my placeholder that says loading. That's the smoke and mirrors of web development, right? Yeah, the data's coming. Okay, I think I just needed to copy it again. So let me copy. Oh no, there it's showing up. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Y-
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
So this is on a high level uh, how a typical application would look like. Say you want to process an order, you have different steps in the process, or also involving different microservices. You want to like check for fraud, maybe a function to prepare the shipment that needs to call into the inventory service,
okay.
and at the end of the day, ship an order and persist that in the database that an order has been processed and shipped. But
Okay.
on on an implementation level, we have, if we use like message, some event driven architecture messaging system, this can we can use different like queues, message queues.
Okay.
In this case, for example, you need a certain event that tells you when to check for fraud, or when the service has done checking for fraud, and the order can be processed or moved to the next stage. And along this line, you want to persist also, even if you're using a state machine, you want to persist the states, like where you currently are in that flow or
Okay.
in the workflow. And or any part of this step could fail, and you basically need to implement some retry mechanism within your architecture to retry those systems. And
Okay.
or maybe also for some certain scenarios, probably for charging a customer, if he fails once, you want to maybe set a timer to retry again, maybe in 2 days. Like the way I think with Stripe, you do
Okay.
something like when they fail to process a card or a payment, it would send a reminder after maybe 5 days. So you
Okay.
could set like a timer in those cases, and then after a few retries, it doesn't work. Maybe you decide how to handle, maybe put it in a dead letter queue, or implement some compensation logic to revert maybe some other
Okay.
process that has happened in the past. And in reality, any part of this flow could fail.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe if it could be on the way to acknowledging one of the queues, and the data fails, and you don't have a retry logic, it means maybe you have to manually go to try things out. And you also
Okay.
have to manually manage, if it's on a complex system, you have to manage states, like where in the process, where in that process exactly is that particular order.
Okay.
And that is what Temporal tries to solve, by trying to give you a technology that helps you with productivity. So you don't have to think about all the complexities with queuing. I guess you've worked with complex system that involve some level of messaging and orchestration or choreography between those different microservices. With Tempora, it tries not to think about the queues in that sense,
Okay.
and it also tries to give you reliability, whereby this retry behaviors, you can it can retry your code for you, and also you don't have to manage states, like you don't have to track where in your system that flow is, and then if
Okay.
eventually the code fails and you have a flow, you want to continue exactly from that code, and rather than rerunning every system or calling every services from the beginning.
Okay.
And that is what temporal in its sense calls durable execution. So when you have
Okay.
this workflow and you need like a way to pass messages across the different functions or and maintain states and do retries.
Hmm.
All this is what to represent your business logic without thinking about the complexity that comes with maintaining these event-driven architectures. Um,
Yeah, because
I don't know. Any question? I think I've been talking for too long.
oh no, no, it's great. It's great. No, April in the chat in on YouTube says really helpful diagrams, and Anthony, my friend Anthony on Twitch is saying these charts give him the sweats. Like I think he's getting nervous about like making sure things are working. Um, but it does make sense that like because like I guess you could build out this kind of system, but who knows how long that would take to build out something like Temporal, and it would really just be for your own business. So it's it's this seems like, yeah, I've never used it, but it seems like it's a great uh potential option for if you have like kind of workflows that are kind of mission critical that really do have to finish, or if for some reason they can't, like you said, with the retry mechanisms and stuff, at some point you can say like, okay, well, we tried 20 times, just letting you know, you're not subscribing to our newsletter. I don't know. Subscribing to a newsletter is probably not as critical as other stuff, but like uh but it's super interesting. And you were talking about like state machines, and uh I did a stream with Nick Nisi last year, who works mainly on in JavaScript land, but he was talking about what the heck's it called? State machines. David Khurshid. I feel Anthony in the chat's probably gonna answer me. What's the name of it? Anyways, there's
Stately,
this. What's that?
stately. You mean the product?
Yeah, stately. Yeah, 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 yeah. But so like that concept of state machines is something that is with, I know it's not the same product at all, but it's that kind of state machines that we have in these workflows that you build out. So like for example, like you said, check fraud, like only check fraud if, have they entered a credit card yet? Okay, now check fraud, as opposed, and you can only end up in certain states based on previous states. um is
Yeah, I think on a fundamental level, they all try to solve the same problem. In
Yeah.
terms of being able to have a reliable system that when you have these processes, they go through steps, and each steps have different states.
Hmm.
And also each within those steps they can branch out to multiple steps. And you also mentioned you want to guarantee something being able to finish, and that is exactly what they try to solve, to be able to guarantee that a process of flow would be able to run to completion without
Okay.
too many manual intervention. And I
Okay.
think you can also build something similar with state machines. I haven't used it personally in production, but I think there was a talk by some folks from Twilio, the SMS company, and they were trying to build some what's it called, compliance for their system. And I think they said they use state machines. I don't remember. So they shared a talk where they migrated from state machines. I don't know what they use in particular, to Temporal. And she explained that one of the challenges they had was that at different times there can be new step or a new
Hmm.
flow within the compliance requirement, and it was hard
Okay.
for them to model this within their state machine. And also they had to manage
Okay.
states on their own, tracking it, and it was a bit like a mess trying to have
Yeah.
everything in order. But what Temporal tries to do is to make it easier for you to reason about those code. For me, it almost feels like writing monolithic code when you are when I use Temporal, and
Mm-hmm.
for them getting here, it's also an evolution. I think if I go back here, this is like the story of the founders of Temporal, how they got to
Okay.
Temporal today. So I think it's Samir or Mark and Samar. They were at Amazon, I think in 2004, and they were part of the founding engineers that, or I think
Okay.
Samar was the tech lead for AWS SQS, and then they also built the simple workflow service, and I think one of them moved to um, Microsoft to also build this Azure Durable Functions and the Durable
Yeah.
Task Framework. So they've tried to solve this fundamental problem over the years, and for them, they feel like okay, they finally found the matching pieces with Tempora. They also built Cadence at Uber, so Cadence
Okay.
is an evolution. So it's very similar to Tempora, but they changed some primitives to make it work properly on Tempora and started a company with it. So this is how
Okay.
they've tried to solve this problem over the years, which is not a new problem.
Mm-hmm.
And they then get into Tempora, and different products try to solve the same thing. But I think Tempora probably there are still more things to improve, but it has gotten to a place where I feel like it works quite well, and you see
Mm-hmm.
different products trying to solve the same problem, like AWS Step Functions as well tries to do the
Yeah.
same durable execution with workflows. But the difference is for Step Functions, you have to, I think it's some kind of UI. You build UIs and write maybe some configuration code. But with
Okay.
Temporal, it's all within your code base.
Yeah, that was something that actually Anthony was asking. Is it like step functions or does it do step functions too? But essentially, you've answered that, and I remember where my confusion about durable objects came in at the from before there, because I think I mixed up the conversation I had with Sunil Pai when we talked about durable objects and the one where I heard Swick Sean Wang talking about temporal, because I remember because like I haven't done any .NET since like 2016, but they just as I was leaving, the framework had the notion of durable tasks. And I remember one of my coworkers talking about it, and that's the person you're referring to that in your first slide there. And so I just kind of mixed like you said, the general concept of something being durable is it's pretty much the same in all these things that have been mentioned, um, but it's cool that they've kind of settled down on this company to do it. And like I saw on your I've read about this before briefly, but like Netflix and stuff, there's like big companies that use Temporal, including like you said, it came out of Uber. So and this brings up a question I have. So like, it's interesting that like this will help like a very large company, like say like a Netflix, like somebody goes to pick their latest video and they want to play it and it doesn't start, so maybe temporal is something that says, okay, let me retry. But for somebody like, I guess, at what scale should you look at using something like temporal? Like what I mean is, I have my own website. I'm probably not gonna use Temporal to make sure that like my newsletter subscription works. You know what I mean? Like, is there like a point where it's like something else is okay until you hit a certain size and then Temporal makes sense, or do you think it could be used at any size uh of a project?
I think it can be used for any size project. It's more of a question of what do you want to achieve with your project. So we
Okay.
talked about being able to guarantee. Do you want, when you have a process, do you want to guarantee that it finishes, that it gets delivered, or
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter to you? So Same thing when we decide in most cases between having a distributed system or being able to run something asynchronously. Do you want the user to wait to for 5 minutes, or is it okay to process it um, in the background and let them know maybe
Yeah.
via an email or notification that something is done? So in
Okay.
that case with Temporal, you decide: do you want to guarantee durability? Do you want to be sure that okay, you want to retry this code? If that doesn't
Hmm.
matter to you, it's fine for not to use it. If you say, okay, you want to be able to do a sync execution, and but you you want to implement your own retries, and you don't want it to be maybe using the same kind of heavily retry mechanism
Hmm.
from Tempora. You can implement yours and maybe use any other queue system, maybe SQS or
Okay.
Kafka, and then implement this. Not everybody likes to implement things in terms of state and flow,
Okay.
but if you know if you want to benefit from some of these things, like you want to be easily uh, look at your application
Hmm.
state and say, okay, this is where this stuff is stuck. That is where you can bring in Temporal. Doesn't matter if it's a small business or big business, or if you are running on two node servers. It's just
Okay.
about what you want to guarantee to your customers.
Okay. Okay, cool. No, thanks for that. And I know we talked a bit before the stream. You said like, because you're currently working on Cron Atlas
Go
and FlyCD, and I know you said like you don't want this to be a marketing thing, and I'll just say that it's not a marketing thing, but I'm interested to talk about those projects that you're building because clearly, I mean, we'll say it's a shameless plug as well, but the reason I want to talk about it is because you had a problem that you needed to solve for yourself. And so you started building these things, and then I guess you came across Temporal at some point, and you're like, oh, I guess this is a good fit. So like, I think it would be interesting to talk about the products you're building because you clearly had that use case that you needed something like Temporal. So I don't know if you want to maybe talk a bit about like because like Fly CD is you deploy several applications to Fly.io, so and you needed some kind of experience there as
Yeah,
well
so
as cron jobs, I think.
yeah, so for that, what brought me to Tempora was basically their scheduling feature that allows you to be able to schedule like a task in the future and
Hmm.
be able to guarantee that it runs. So that
Okay.
was the first thing I started, and then when I started Cron Atlas, I was looking to run just call APIs on a schedule, but be able to, if it fails to have temporal retry it maybe 3 times or 10 times. And
Okay.
over the course of doing that, I started thinking of a use case that temporal I think is also very suited for, which is like running scheduled function. So I guess maybe your scheduled function is like cron job, but similar to Netlify. So imagine you have like
Yeah.
a serverless function, and you want to be able to give a particular function, and you want to schedule that function to run at a particular time. So um, that is one of the things Cron Atlas does, or it's
Hmm.
currently in development at the moment, but some part of it is working, which you can try. So
Okay.
one part, which is a simple flow that just calls APIs on a schedule, and the other part is also the one for the scheduled function that allows you to run a particular function on schedule. So what that does is the user comes to Cron Atlas and uploads a function file. So you
Okay.
maybe build compile your your code into a single JavaScript file and you give it to Cron Atlas, and then you decide on a schedule to run. And what
Okay.
this does is it uses the fly.io. So Fly has this machine API concept, and what it does is how there's a workflow that would create a machine, a VM for to run that function. And
Okay.
if it fails to create the VM, maybe Fly's API is down, it would retry for I think 3 or 5 times to retry creating the machine. And
Okay.
then when it creates the machine, it would deploy the code and run the code. Now, when the
Okay.
code is done running on the VM, it will send a signal back to my server. So that's a way of signaling to the workflow running with temporal primitive that the job or the function is done running, and then it
Okay.
shuts down or maybe gets some value from the machine to be able to display on the UI for the user. Or if
Okay.
it was an error, to it will send a signal that okay, the job finished with an error, and then it would once it gets that signal, the next step in the workflow would be to destroy the VM and then record. You can see from the structure
Okay.
the output of that scheduled function. So this is how I
Okay.
also use temporal for scheduling or do implementing like a sort of scheduled function service.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I actually used to work at Netlify, so yeah, they had scheduled functions, and Vercel has a similar offering too. So I guess the question I have is, for Cron Atlas, is it specific to Fly.io, or can you use those scheduled jobs anywhere? Like it's platform agnostic, or
So for the scheduled function, you it doesn't deploy to the user server. We run the function on our own
okay.
server, which actually runs on fly.io, but the user doesn't know that it runs
Oh,
on
okay, okay.
fly.io.
Okay, I
And
see.
then
So
there's the
it's different. Okay.
yeah. But then if you have your functions on Vercel or Netlify and you just want to run it there, the other option is to give it like an API, which I think some apps do. You give it the API, then it calls maybe your Vercel endpoint and then your serverless function endpoint, and then it will run your job on your own server. So it's just two
Okay, okay.
different approach.
Okay, gotcha. So so you're hosting the scheduled functions. So
Yeah.
so I guess like cuz like for example on Netlify I would write code to say like, okay, I'm doing some action, and then there's a configuration in the file where you say like, I don't know, every 24 hours go do whatever my code does. So I guess in the context of Cron Atlas, because you're hosting this the serverless functions that do the cron jobs, what does somebody using it pass to the function? Is it do they say like I want to schedule something and then they pass in some code, or is it a script, I'm just curious how you leverage the Cron Atlas cron jobs if you're hosting them, like it's your
Yeah.
code, I
So
guess is what.
So you give it like similar to Lambda, you give it like a JS file.
Oh, okay.
You upload a JS file. I mean, it's still pretty early or new, but at the moment you give it the JS file, and then from the UI you can, or also the API, which is also you can tell it when you want to run the function. Maybe give it the cron expression, or
Okay.
you can just say, okay, I want to run this every 15 minutes or every 10 days.
Oh, okay, okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah. If you want to
Okay, no,
run
that
it
makes
just
sense.
once, if you want to run it just once, you can just pick a particular date, and then so we save the file in a object storage, and then we creates the schedule with Temporal, and when it's time to run the function, it creates the machine, and then the
Okay.
machine would have enough details to be able to pull in the code and execute the code. So, like
Okay.
AWS Lambda, you have like a handler function which you would pass in, and then you it will run that for you.
Okay. No, okay. No, that makes sense. I just wasn't sure how it was running if you were hosting it, but that makes sense. Okay. And I also know it's early days like you said, so like I know you're still working on some stuff, but I still think it's interesting to talk about it because like I was saying, you
Yeah.
clearly found a need to use something like Temporal for your own needs, and I think a lot of times when people are like something isn't working for me and they try to fix it for themselves, that's a lot of times products come out of those things, as opposed to like, oh, let me just try this thing, like I think when it's something that bothers you or you can't get working, that's when I think products are born. So
Yeah.
no, that's cool. That's cool. Um, so Okay, so right now for Cron Atlas, it's still early days, like you said, but I think I dropped a link to it. Can anybody sign up to try it out right now, or is it just kind of like because it's still early days? Are you just more like to your friends, like, hey, try this out, or what's the I guess yeah, I
It's
guess
at the
people can
moment
try it.
it's open to try, but I'm trying to get have a different approach because it's with this product as well. When you're building product early, I also want customer feedback. So a lot of people sign up and then maybe set up some basic cron, and you try to reach
Okay.
out for feedback and you don't get any from most of the
Yeah.
people. So I'm trying to for both products now, I'm trying to maybe for Cron Atlas limit close down public self-serve sign up. So if
Okay.
anyone, maybe I plan to do that next month. But
Okay.
if anyone wants to sign up, then we have like a chat, and I'm sure that okay, it's something you are willing to use, and also we work together to see what is missing and help get it
Yeah.
to a better ground. So next month I plan to remove self-serve or sign up options. But at the
Okay.
moment, you can sign up and try it out, or DM me on Twitter and we can talk more about it. And
Okay.
yeah, for FlyCD, it's quite open. You If you are running on fly.io, you can use it. But I'm planning also where to get more engagement. Now you have a lot of people on the free plan, and
Okay.
I'm trying to have more paying customers and also focus more on those paying customers. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to take out the free plan next month, and then only engage more with those that are paying, because it's only those that are paying that are actually giving you responses when they need something, and when they run into issues as well, they let you know
Yeah.
or ask you why. Some people, when they sign up, after a while maybe they leave the apps running and they just don't tell you anything.
Hmm. Yeah. I guess something that's interesting too about Cron Atlas versus like just because I've been more in the front end world of the past few years, but like something like Vercel or Netlify that offer scheduled functions, you have to opt into their ecosystem. I mean, I am biased. I used to work at Netlify. I think it's great,
Yeah.
but like and Vercel is a great product too. But I guess the interesting thing about Cron Atlas is it's not tied to a platform. It's like its own thing. So like you could host your site on Vercel or Netlify or Fly, but if you wanted to, you know, have some scheduled functions, you could just, assuming Cron Atlas becomes a product at some point that's people are paying for and all that. But like it could be something that like you don't have to be tied to a platform. It's its own thing basically.
Yeah. I think there are pros and cons to to that. Like if you use Vercel for let's say you're an agency and you use it for your client, you
Yeah.
already have a buy-in to Vercel, and it will be hard for you to for most people to leave Vercel, and then if Vercel provides some kind of way to run cron jobs there and then go try a different product, you want something within like a tight ecosystem. That's why you see when people are building on AWS, everything they do revolves around the AWS services. So they would use SQS for queues, DynamoDB for their database, and you know, unlike trying to use one something from AWS, one from Azure, the other from Vessel. So I feel
Yeah.
like it's more a challenge trying to get people, because some question I get is, oh, you can do cron jobs on Vessel. Why should I try Cron Atlas? You have to figure out a way to try to convince them, especially now that it's early, where some
Yeah.
things are not that nice. I mean, because it takes a lot of effort to build this kinds
Oh
of
yeah.
dev products. So
Yeah, it's yeah, yeah, building out any kind of product now, like I'm building a product out over at open source, nothing related to durable tasks, but yeah, people a lot of things are table stakes nowadays, so like developer experience is definitely a big one. And like you said, you're still early days, so like there's stuff that you mentioned that you still want to polish probably and like dig into. But but yeah, like I mean, I don't know. I think it's admirable you're building a product. Then not everybody builds products, right? Like, uh, it's something I like are like on your own, or is it just yourself right now, or are you a team of people, or
and it's just myself at the moment. Sometimes it feels like a
yeah,
lot, and I think, oh, maybe I need a second person, but then it's hard to find someone that has similar visions or willing to also
okay,
put in similar amount of effort.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's true,
it's
it's true,
it's I think for building products, it's maybe it depends on the product you pick. Sometimes it's a bit it takes a lot of effort, and sometimes maybe you need months to build something to a particular stable point, especially
hmm
if you are targeting developers. Most would want to use like something that is very, very stable and from maybe a VC funded company with $10 million. So sometimes I think to myself, maybe I'm choosing the wrong market. Probably I should just still do dev tools and just look for a product that maybe within 1 or 2 months I can have a maybe non-dev or people that are less tech savvy and focus on those market. It's easier to maybe a product that would not be too complicated in terms of having the whole feature set and the target.
yeah,
But for developers, you think of dev experience, you think of the UX, you think of the
yeah,
stability and reliability of the product. And if you are trying to do something like maybe like Cron Atlas, for example, some people might want to know, are you being backed by how much funding do you have? So
yeah. No, it's true, but you never know. You mentioned like maybe touching on like I'm just kind of spitballing here, but like you're saying like maybe if the product ended up being towards more of a non-technical crowd, like I wonder if you could, like you wouldn't like I wouldn't have, my I'm always like helping my parents with any kind of computer issues. It's the classic you're the family member that works with computers, so you clearly know how to fix networks and printers and stuff.
yeah.
Um but I wonder if it'd be interesting if, and I guess time will tell, but like maybe if the product ended up being more for less technical people, and like you wouldn't have somebody non-technical uploading like a JS handler function, but you
Yeah.
could always have templates and stuff, like I need to schedule something, and then like, like you would still be uploading that handler and stuff, but like that person wouldn't be doing it. They would just say like, I don't know, I need a good calendar app, maybe, like who knows, maybe some other product comes out of Cron Atlas, or maybe it stays as is. I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you never know. For me, it's what I enjoy about it is the experimentation. Maybe I would land on something. You don't just sit and get some fantastic ideas. You just
Yeah,
build things, and you meet people, or you stumble on new problems, and you hear stories of companies pivoting to a different product. So maybe, if depends on how this works out, like you said, maybe scheduling for a different kind of system, or
yeah.
maybe over time it could be another product, but we will see.
Yeah. No, I think it's great you're doing it, and it sounds like you're having fun building it out. And because I was thinking of like, this is an extreme example, but like the story with Netflix is like, I don't know if you've heard this story before, but yeah, do you know what Roku devices are like for streaming? Okay.
I
So
think
Roku's,
I've heard of it, but I
yeah,
never used it.
it's just it's hardware. So like if you want to stream like Netflix or other services on your TV, some TVs come built in with Roku, but you can also buy like a physical separate device. But
Mm.
um I had one for a while. I have like a Chromecast stick now on my TV, but the thing with Roku is, so Netflix originally wasn't a streaming service. I mean, well, if we go way back, Netflix was used to be able to order DVDs and get them in the mail. But like after that part, when they went more digital, um, they were building out hardware for streaming, and that was what Roku became. But like at the last minute, uh, the CEO or CTO, Reed, I think it's Reed Hoffman, he said like, or who I'm think it was him, but so please somebody correct me in the chat if I'm grossly wrong here. But basically, they pivoted at the last minute. So instead of saying we're gonna ship all this hardware to allow people to stream, they said we're gonna become a streaming service, and he got a lot of pushback. But like Netflix is clearly a pretty pretty decent streaming service now. And I mean,
Yeah,
I think Roku appears to be doing well. I don't know, but like it's just interesting how like this is what we're doing, and then all of a sudden, no, this is what we're doing. So that's why I mentioned like, who knows, maybe Cron Atlas will become something else, but. So anyways,
yeah.
uh
Maybe I've been thinking recently as well, like what would work also, like long term sustainably as well. Like sometimes I think maybe I should even think of some boring market, probably something market that already exists,
yeah.
that you don't need to validate, rather than trying to find some nice dev product that you work on as a solo dev. And
Yeah.
like I think people like Jason Fried talks about,
Hmm.
like like building, like or I can't, maybe not Jason Fried, I can't remember who he was, like building like boring products, just doing something in the already existing market, but maybe bringing a new perspective, or tackling the problem in a different way. So I've been thinking
Hmm.
about that, like, okay, maybe I should forget devs. It's hard to please as a one person, except if I want to go the VC route.
Yeah. No, but it is true. There's like, well, or like what we consider boring markets, like you know, dentistry, for example. I don't consider
Yeah,
that very exciting, but there's probably administrative parts of that might need some software that doesn't exist yet, and like uh it sounds boring as hell to me, to be honest, but
yeah,
like people do those things, and they've made tons of money on products like that, or like I can think of a friend of mine, Vic, who I know from Virtual Coffee. He's always building these like kind of small side apps that he makes money on, and like one of them was at his children's school. Like I remember this too, like when I took my kids to school, and you'd have to like say you wanted to say like, oh, the children are going on a field trip and it's going to be $20. Please write a check. Here's a paper, fill it out, you know. And he basically automated a lot of that stuff with like Airtable, and like it's a little more refined now, I think. But basically, he found a problem that it was just driving him nuts, because it's like all this paper, and then eventually the
Yeah.
school board, I think, I don't know if I'm saying this story completely correctly, but basically the school that his kids go to, at least them, I think they use this product now, and I think maybe even the school board does. I'm not positive, but this is what I mean. Like that was like a boring thing, but
Yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna fix this problem. But again, it came out of like frustration. Like, why am I always like writing all these forms out and putting stamps on envelopes, mailing, right, like sending a physical check? So yeah, who knows? It's definitely interesting times. So I'm definitely curious what happens with Cron for sure. And we
Yeah.
we didn't
It's open
talk.
source, so we'll see.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't realize it was open source. You should this is a side note, but we have uh we I work at Open Sauce, which I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but we started doing these well, we do Twitter Spaces all the time, or X Spaces, I guess. And
Okay.
we started this new series where it's like pitch your project, and so and yours is open source, so that could be interesting if you wanted to pitch it. I'd have to see what the criteria is, but I think it's, as long as it's open source, it's fine. So it could be interesting, you know, because I've worked in open source for quite a long time now, and you definitely, there's a balance, like not balance, but like I guess there's a potential risk of open sourcing your work, you know, and somebody, you know, forking it or whatever. But like I think from what I've seen in general, you get great ideas from other people in the community that you might not have even been aware of, or you might not have thought of
Yeah.
something. So I think open source is great personally. So yeah, that's super cool that it is open source. And is that on the Cron Atlas site? Is there a link to the
Yeah.
GitHub repo? Okay, I'm gonna drop that in the chat. Okay, yeah, here it is. View on GitHub. Um, cool. Yeah, folks want to check that out. And I guess in terms of if somebody were interested in contributing to this project, um, I guess, well, the tech stack, there's definitely I'll just switch us to I'll bring you over to my shared screen for a second here. Um, I'll just zoom this in here. Um, okay. Oh, I'm seeing a delay. Oh, it's YouTube that's behind a bit. But yeah, so I've got the Cron Atlas repo up here. And so the code base, I guess if you want to speak to it a little bit, like I can see here it's got TypeScript in it. So is it mainly TypeScript and having knowledge of Temporal? Is that like the two big things you need to know if you were interested in contributing to the project, or?
Yeah. TypeScript, remix. So remix for the front end part.
Oh, cool.
Also,
Cool.
also for the API part, because I got
Okay,
asked
cool.
for some API features, so that's also running behind Remix resource
Okay.
route.
Oh,
And
that's
so
interesting.
Remix, TypeScript, Node.js, and Temporal. I think
Okay,
Temporal
cool.
you can learn on the fly.
Okay.
At the moment, it's a PNPM repo,
Okay, so
but then
workspace. Okay.
yeah, PNPM workspace. So, but I plan to move to maybe NX in the future,
Okay.
but that's not like a key priority for me at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, if you're interested in NX, I don't mean to be name dropping, but I did a stream with Yuri who works at NX, and NX looks very compelling as well. So yeah, I would suggest definitely checking NX out, because it's not just I think the thing I was confused about when I heard about NX was I thought it was just for mono repos, but you can obviously have mono repos with NX, but it's more than just a mono repo tool. Like it's basically a whole kind of like build and like kind of task based framework, which I think is pretty neat. Um, but yeah, that's cool. Okay, so no, that's super interesting that this is open source. So yeah, if people are interested in any of those particular technologies, so Remix, TypeScript, or Temporal, or just like I guess scheduling in general, this could be something super interesting for you if if folks are interested. And I see you got a couple issues and a pull request open, so there's some activity in there, and no, that's cool.
Yeah, I think I need to create more issues. So, there are some things I need to fix that are not on GitHub issues.
Okay.
Uh, and but then also, I mean, if anyone is interested, they can DM me or message, and we can talk more about it. Yeah, a few things that
Okay.
definitely needs to be done.
Cool. Cool. There's uh, Ke- uh Kevin Vandy who's in the chat, who I actually got to meet at Remix Conf. I went there last year. He's saying all TanStack repositories use NX now for faster builds, because the other thing you get with NX too is you can do cloud caching. That's interesting, for sure. I know Turbo Repo has that as well. That's another option too. But I know a lot of people have been using NX. So that's
Yeah,
good to know.
I
TanStack's pretty popular, so it's definitely got a few projects.
yeah, I looked into Turbo Repo a bit, but I usually get confused with how to set it up. And I think NX from the docs looks more straightforward, in my opinion. I've used it once for one client project in the past, but
Okay.
not heavily. I'm sure there are a lot of people using it heavily
Okay.
to do a lot of stuff. But I just need to go back to the docs again and read. But it's quite interesting. I think now they are moving towards the NX Cloud. They are trying to help you run
Yeah.
CI, faster CIs with distributed caching and all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to
Yeah. No.
check it out more.
Yeah. No. The distributed caching's pretty interesting because then not only is it like if you like say somebody on your team's already built out the project, like they ran npm install or whatever the build command they have is, it'll cache whatever they built already into the cloud cache, so that when you come and like say you're on vacation or something and you come back and you just go install and it's almost instantaneous because like all those things were built. There's cache invalidation for sure and stuff, but it it definitely seems like something super interesting going forward as projects become bigger,
Yeah,
because like I know just like in earlier days, like when I used to have to configure Webpack and stuff, sometimes some build, and this isn't against Webpack, like Webpack paved the way for a lot of things, but like
yeah,
sometimes it was just the project was big and it just took a long time to build. So like if you that would be every time you would go to restart, right? Like so if you can have stuff built and cached already, like that's definitely a win for sure. Um, but cool,
yeah.
cool, cool.
I
Um,
wonder what people from maybe .NET or Java space is used for this kind of task. I know there's Bazel, which I think is similar to NX in some way. I went to BazelCon here in Munich last year,
oh,
and
okay.
looks like a lot of Java .NET folks are using Bezel. I think there's also a company behind it now that I think they left maybe Kuku and now have their own products trying to help people like consult for Bezel or also help to do like some kind of caching with it. But I'm not sure how other if how easy it is to use NX in .NET
Yeah, it's
projects.
true. I hadn't thought about it because it's typically like, I mean, I think it was built more for front end stuff, but I don't see why it doesn't have to be. Um, I guess, yeah, it's a pretty interesting question. I wonder if they, because I mean, you're just doing a build,
Yeah.
so like, I guess I think the difference might be is like when you build like .NET stuff, it's like it's one main thing. I mean, you can build libraries and stuff too, obviously, but like sometimes like if you're building the app, maybe it's really big. I don't know. It's an interesting
Maybe it
question
might
though.
work. I think NX has this project.json. So since it's not entirely based on package.json, maybe you can define this. I think they call it plugins or some kind of system to be able to make
Yeah,
it composable. So probably with that, you can have a .NET plugin. Maybe they use Rust. Maybe there can be some bindings
yeah,
that you make them work. Probably.
yeah, or maybe something in userland. But yeah, it goes back to what I was saying is like NX isn't just a mono repo tool. Like that's something I think people associated with because I know they took over the Lerna project, but it really is for running tasks in general. So I honestly don't see why you couldn't do like .NET or Java, but maybe there's things we're unaware of why you might not be able to do that. But yeah, cool, awesome, um, cool. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to kind of touch on today, Peter. It's or we could maybe start wrapping up here. It's been, I don't know. I think Temporal looks really interesting. I haven't had a need for this in a project yet, but for the use cases you were mentioning, it does sound like a really great option.
Yeah, I think like we said, it depends on your what you want to do for the application. If you want to
Hmm.
guarantee this thing, but there are also different products trying to promise you the same thing. So, or maybe you already do some of these things in your own application, but maybe not at the same scale as Tempora. But I think we touched on um, at the base what durable execution is, how Tempora helps you solve that. Uh, on a high level, you can do schedules with it. You build workflows. It has retry. Um, so I think I didn't mention another nice thing with the workflows in Tempora is if you have some workflow or process that it would involve humans
Okay.
in that flow. Maybe I think using the example from Twilio, where at a particular stage in the compliance process,
Yeah.
you when the person submits the application, you need to read through it and then manually approve that okay, this looks good to me.
Okay.
In that case, you need human in that flow to make it continue. And this is you can design this with Tempora where you can send signals to the workflow and then it knows how to continue
Oh, cool.
executing your code. Um, there's also nice way for you to debug your application. So there's a way you can export like the JSON for a particular workflow execution, and then you
Okay.
can debug that in VS Code, and you can step through code and see exactly um, what happened.
Okay.
Um,
No, that's super
yeah,
cool.
so
Yeah.
you have like timers, retry. You can delay code execution for a particular period. Yeah, I think those are like on a high level what temporal gives you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it definitely sounds super interesting, and I'm trying to think of the day I'll need it because like the stuff I'm mainly focused on more like I'm more like doing product engineering right now, which is more just the front end and some backend. Like basically it's a Next.js app, and I do some stuff on the API sometimes, but I'm not really digging into big backend services right now. So probably I won't be touching Temporal myself anytime soon. But it definitely, yeah, it looks super cool. And yeah, no, I just wanted to say thanks for sharing that with me. And I know you're over in Germany, so it's is it 5 or 6 hour difference? Is it 7:15 p.m. your time, or is it 6:16?
Yes,
I can't
seven
remember what the time.
sixteen. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, no, so just wanted to say thanks for, I know it's later in the day for you, so I do
no
appreciate you
problem.
taking the time to come hang. And yeah, I'm curious to see where Cron Atlas goes. And yeah, definitely keep me posted. And yeah, thanks for all the questions in the chat today. I think this is the first time I had more people on YouTube than Twitch. So I guess people are starting to find it on YouTube. But yeah, appreciate the conversations, everybody. And Peter, if you don't mind just staying on for a second. And everybody
Yeah,
else, I'll see you next week. Hanging with Toby Solutions from the Million team next week. Let me double check. Yeah, next Monday. Yeah, me and Toby are hanging out. We're gonna be talking about all things open source. So definitely check that out. You can check the schedule. Is my schedule button working? Oh, it's working again, except no, it's not sending it. I'll drop it in the chat. It's just basically nikiT.live/schedule. I'll have to fix that Twitch command, but anyways. But yeah, check that out. And yeah, we'll see you all next weekend. Yeah, Peter, if you just don't mind staying on for a sec.
yeah.
Later, everybody.